Hi book besties, welcome back to the channel. If you guys are seeing my face for the first time, hi, my name is Maya and I like to talk about books here on the internet. Today we are doing a wrap up of the entire last month's reading and I am so excited because we succeeded. I feel that we succeeded in last month's readathon. And I'll get to the I feel part in a second, but first let me make a little bit of a announcement, kind of, sorta, or rather just like a community announcement, if you will. Actually, a couple of things. There's a little bulletin board. So first point of the bulletin board, I just want to say I have been seeing y'all subscribing to our little community here, and we really are just like building up a little community here, and I love it, and it makes my heart happy, and thank you guys so much. It's so cool to know that people are listening and caring about what you have to say, but also specifically when it's about something that you love as much as I love reading books and talking about them. Thank you guys, love you guys. Wow, you can't even see that little heart. Wow, okay, hi. Thank you guys so much, love y'all. The second bulletin that I have for you guys, I guess, or second announcement rather, is I am participating in Realmathon. Here's the TBR video if you guys want to go check that out. I'll leave that linked in the description box down below, okay? YouTuber spiel over. And because I'm going to be participating in Realmathon, I am vlogging the experience. Yes, I am actually going to be doing it. I am going to be vlogging my reading experience. I am doing weekly reading vlogs. I'm going to be posting them on Saturdays, so you're going to get the weekly uploads on Wednesday, and then you're also going to get weekly uploads on Saturday that equate to the number of weeks within the month by the end of it. So there may be like a reading vlog for Realmathon that is going to be posted on a Saturday in the next month, unless this month ends on a Saturday. I don't know. Honestly, time is not a thing over here. It's an ideal. I don't know what day goes for what date or time for the day, so it's great. So that's what's happening over here. But I think that is all of the community announcements that I have for you guys. Yeah, so let's get into these books. So I'm gonna leave it up to you to determine whether we succeeded or failed our readathon challenge based on what I read. So for the month of February, I did Forensic February, and I'm actually gonna insert all of the prompts and the books that I said I was gonna read for those prompts so that we can remind ourselves the order of the board in which we are going. And then the irony of what I am about to say next. Okay, so insert footage first. Roll number one. Roll number one landed on a 3, and for roll number 3, we landed on the third space, and that was to read a book with a glossary or map. Okay, so moving on to roll number 2. And we got a 4. This prompt was scene recommended. Roll number 3. We rolled a 7. Oh wait, I'm sorry, did I say 6-sided die? I meant 8-sided die. Hello. Anyways, and we got the prompt of pick a book with a question in the title or with an interview. Last but not least, we have roll number 4. I rolled a 5, which is so fitting because we come to the end of the board and we have to read a 5-star prediction. You guys, it is official. I cannot ask for instructions to save my life because I have read 3 of the 4 books, and guess which book I did not read based on what I just said. Ding, 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 you guys got it right. I did not read 6 of Crows by Leigh Bardugo. However, I did read 3 books this month. And also, I would like to point out that 6 of Crows was a reread. So technically, I have read it before. Does that count for this? You guys can determine that. However, what I determine and what I count is that I read all new to me books and 2 new to me authors. So I think I did swimmingly, especially when you consider the month of January, you know, the month where I only read one book. I think I'm doing great. So I read 3 books, but I am only rating 2. And I have a very specific reason. But first, let me show you guys the book that I'm not going to be rating, and that is Slender Man by Kathleen Hale. And I am not going to rate this book because I morally and ethically don't believe that I can. Because this is based off of a real crime that happened not that long ago, actually. And I don't feel it's okay of me, just personally, to rate a book based on a crime. Just personally, I just can't do it. This is talking about the case of Morgan Geiser and Anna Weir. I believe that's how you pronounce her last name. And these 2 12-year-old girls attempted to take the life of their friend in the hopes of pleasing a fictional character that was created on Creepypasta that is like a fandom site, but a little darker. What this author is attempting to do within this book is not only explain the case and explain the context and the background and the family. What this author is trying to do is showcase all of the missteps that happened throughout this case that may have changed some minds and some verdicts. What I will say is on this is that it covered a lot of heavy topics, and I really went through it with this book, and I actually have in real-time footage me talking about this book in my lifestyle channel throughout the weeks that I read it. And I think what I want to do truly is compile those real-time thoughts and then come to you guys, you know, now afterwards with a little bit more concrete feelings about what I was thinking and saying at the time that might help articulate it. So I think I'm going to do that, and I think I'm actually going to put that video here on this channel at some point, because I think that this is very important to talk about, and I think, you know, literature, media does play a part in certain mindsets surrounding cases, and it has to be handled carefully, delicately, and in a morally and ethically upright way. And morally and ethically, I cannot rate this book. However, what I can say is that I believe that there is even though there is always going to be a bias, because we're human, we're immediately biased to the situation. Even though there is a bias about this book, it does do justice in explaining the things that happened in a very straightforward manner. And I don't think, in my personal opinion of how I read this book and how I interpreted it, I don't think anything was trying to be justified or brushed over too much in the extent of what they were trying to get across informationally. I do think that I disagree with the author in some ways in the things that she was trying to bring up, and the overemphasis of it could lead to a interesting thought process and kind of muddying the waters of what happened. What happened was 2 12-year-old girls made the choice to attempt to take the life of a friend, and it was meditated. Whether or not these girls believed that this person was real, well, not person, but that this fictional character was real, whether or not they thought it was weird that they had these thoughts, at the end of the day, there is no justifying the taking of a life. And I think some of the points that are made that were lost in translation could be taken as a justification for it, if not thought about on all fronts and not thought about on how all of this is and all of the details. I think I said it before. I think that there's this pendulum swing of support and hate, and it's really hard to get right in the middle of it all and be like, I can see the good, I can see the bad, and we could weigh it with the set base standard of what is morally and ethically right, and by setting a morally and ethically right standard, correct? So being that there was such a pendulum swing of hate for these two because of what they did, and yeah, what they did was terrible. There were certain elements, I think, that were made that were problematic on the justice system's part, on the school teachers' parts, on the parents' parts. I think there were multiple bad decisions that were made that I think are being brushed under the rug for sure, and this author is trying to bring that to light. However, what it could do is swing the pendulum in a way that is like glorifying and edifying these girls and like showing a support that maybe is a little too much in the face of what the crime was, which was you attempted to take a life. So I think this is good to read. I think this is good to have topics of conversation on. I think this is a good starting point. I do think be very careful in any of the consumption of media surrounding any case, but particularly because we're talking about this in this case, where I think, pendulum swinging aside, what happened, all of the details, how did we deal with it, who was right, who was wrong, address the wrong in the situation, because I believe personally in that case everybody did something wrong. Now the victim, from what I've seen, from what I've heard, I think everyone else in this situation, there was some wrong that was done. Obviously the actual committing of the attempted murder was wrong. I think the justice system was wrong in not giving help. Clearly, there were some medical issues that needed addressed. That was wrong. I think the judge being so, just unwilling to give that help as well, the justice system and the prison system, that was wrong. I feel like the teachers brushing under the rug some things that they had seen and didn't address to the parents was wrong. I think that the parents not taking into account schizophrenia being in the family and being a thing that could be passed on generationally was wrong. There was a lot of wrongs that happened here, but we got to remember, 2 wrongs don't make a right. No, 2 wrongs need to be fixed in the right way. So just being careful with that. There were some things I agreed with, some things I disagreed with, some things, it wasn't that I necessarily disagreed, it was more so I was like, let's hope that when read, it's not a complete pendulum swing either way. And you can't really help that, right? When you write literature, when you digest media or create a piece of media, you can't really tell people how to feel about that and control the wave either way. However, I do think there is a responsibility in how we present the information and how it is worded. And overall, I think this author did a good job. I will say that. So that was one of the books that I had read, and I definitely had a time with it. I had many of people who I was conversing about it with, well, a few people in my life that I was conversing about it with, and I do think that there are good conversations that can be had because of this. That was an interesting, heavy read. So let's move on to something lighter, but also in the same vein. The London Seance Society by Sarah Penner. This was a 5-star read. Shocker, I know. She wrote The Lost Apothecary, and I read The Lost Apothecary. I gave it a 5-star. Read this book, gave it a 5-star. What I genuinely enjoy about the author, so I'm kind of going backwards here. I'm going with the rating, the why I liked it, and then what it's about. Okay, so the reason I like this author is because she is so good at giving you the answers, but making you work for the details. So what I mean by that is you can kind of tell where the story is about to progress, what is going to happen, but you don't know how it's going to happen. And there are plot twists within there that give you the right answer, but in a way that you just would never have thought of. Or at the very least, I would never have thought of. Maybe I'm just dumb, but she gives you an entertaining ride with a lot of emotionality. I think what she does really well, and I love this, is that she gets characters. She gets how to write characters. She gets how to get you to feel about characters. And I think, listen, this part is all speculation on my end. I think she sits with these characters and she knows these characters. She has sat down with them at lunch and talked with them over coffee. She has lived life with them. They have vented to her about life. She listens and responds and tries to give advice. She vents to them about how their lives are doing things to her and in her head and whatever her troubles with writing, and they listen and they're like, here, let me help you. This is what I actually meant to say. And that's kind of the vibes that I am getting. Like, she knows these characters, and you can like tell that because she writes them in, and immediately you understand who they are, what they're about. But also, you don't know them like she knows them. She knows their secrets, and she's gonna reveal it to you slowly as you go through the book. You just have to stay with her. And it's kind of like life with a friend. Like, you know, they'll reveal more and more. You just gotta stay with them, and they'll tell you what's what. And it's so good. So that's what I love about her as an author, and like her writing style, and just some of the different elements. I also love personally, okay, one more thing. I love that we get female-focused and female-forward timepieces. The way that these books truly felt researched, and like the topic of that time period is known to this author. And she very much is just like, okay, I am going to take that and I'm gonna roll with it. Now also, let me give you the point of view of the females. It's really giving Angelica and Hamilton.
When I meet Thomas Jefferson, I would compel him to include women in the sequel. Right!
If you know, you know. Empowering, right? And also just quite hilarious. Bruh, like, that is this. That is this book summarized. Okay, I had to throw that in there. Anywho, so what this book is about two women who have met, and well, one of the women, Lena, she lost her sister Evie in a horrible way, and she believes that there's more answers to be had. So she goes to this other woman who her sister just loved and adored and idolized, basically. She did seances for people, and oftentimes the way that she did her seances and the way that she would get information about these people and their deaths would oftentimes be solving true crime cases of that day. So basically, Lena goes to this amazing seancer. I don't know if that's what they call them. Spiritualist? I don't know what you call them. Vaudeline. And she asks, hey, you knew my sister. She was your apprentice. She moved back home, and now she is dead. And I need to know what happened to her. And so Vaudeline is like, okay. She takes this girl under her wing, and she is telling Lena, you have a gift in this area. And Lena is not believing her because she's very just like, see it to believe it type of thing. But she's starting to learn maybe there's more to life than that. Maybe having a little bit of faith, having a little bit of belief, having a bit of knowing of things beyond might just be the key to getting the answers that she wants. And so she is apprenticing under Vadeline. They're in this seance in this interesting little, what do they call it? They call it little chateau. There's this little chateau outside of the city, and they're sitting there because that is where the daughter of her new clients had died. And well, that's creepy alone. It's like, girl, you're out in the middle of nowhere in an abandoned chateau. That's what they describe it as, abandoned. And I'm like, you're on the outskirts of city life, in the middle of nowhere seemingly, in an abandoned chateau. Okay, all right, girl, you know, you do you, but also just be careful. She died there, and the way that Vadeline kind of does her seances, it's where the person was last alive or thought to be last alive. She goes through their lives kind of and tries to go to the places where they were and kind of absorbs the energy that is there to give more help within this seance. I don't really know how to describe this very well. I'm so sorry. But basically, they are, I don't know how to describe this well, but they're doing a seance, right, in the last place where they believe that the daughter has died. So they're in the middle of all of this, and suddenly this person just walks into this abandoned chateau with a letter in his hand, weird enough as is, hands it to Vadeline. Vadeline reads it, and one of her good friends from London has passed away. Now, she has escaped from London to Paris, and this is going to be very important. So she has said that she will not step foot back in London until all of the stuff that has occurred there that is a threat to her in her life is gone or locked up or whatever. And so she escaped to Paris. Now, Lena, who came from London, is apprenticing under her in Paris, but because her friend has passed and she believes it's having to do with the reason that she escaped from Paris, she is going back to London to help find her friend's killer. Lena takes this as an opportunity to find the killer of her sister, and we are following them as they are going deep into the trenches of the London Seance Society, a men-only organization for seance work, amongst other things. And trust me, the details that you get in here, the fraud, the lies, the corruption, the absolute, I just want to slap up these men type of scenarios, because they use their power and their prestige for absolutely everything. And the details that you get in here of how they use their power and why and for what purpose and reason, oh, you just want to strangle them. But you can't because they're fictional anyways. Although these could be based on real life men, who knows? Anyways, yeah, that is what this book is. It is basically labeled under historical fiction, at least in my mind, because it definitely has the historical time periods, kind of what would have happened at that time, and it is fiction. So I greatly enjoyed this book. I gave this a 5-star. Obviously, I already said that, but I love this book. It's a must read, seriously. All the people in my life who I have been forcing to read things, y'all know who you are. And the people who are not in my real life who would like to be forced to read something, well, forced. I would never force y'all, but if you guys want to be forced to read something. Last but certainly not least, we have Renegades by Marissa Meyer, and I'm gonna do the same structure. What is, okay. Sorry guys, my nose is very itchy. This is a 5-star. And I love this book. Okay, listen. So easy to read. Chunky, yes. So easy to read. This was probably my fastest read of these 3 books. You can't really tell that that's 3. Hold up. Of these 3 books. Fastest. Chunkiest. Fastest. Okay, so some of the elements that I loved about this book. the banter between characters. Like, these characters are so real. They're not the most formed, the most complex, but you kind of forgive the author for that because you're gonna learn more as you go. You just know that. Plus, this is a part of a series. I don't want everything right away. I do want rounded characters, but I don't want everything right away. And I know that is complete contrast to what I said about this book. Listen, this is a singular story, so I want my characters to be well-rounded, well-formed the second that I meet them, because I need to like be able to trust them, believe them, and root for them or not root for them as we continue on with the story. This book, however, I know is a part of a series, so I can be a little bit more forgiving in the detail of these characters, but also the characters that we are following in this book are younger. I don't know if they're necessarily teens. I think they're like 20s, but it makes sense that we would get this kind of characterization versus here where it sounds like they're in their later 20s, maybe early 30s. I don't know. This woman feels like she's lived so many lives, but also is described as just like young. Let's just put it that way. So I don't know what that says, but I do believe that, you know, in your early 20s, and specifically, I think they're like 20, 21 is where I'd gauge their ages just because of how they describe their lives and how many lives they seem to have lived already within their young lives. I think that they are, yeah, probably 20, 21 maybe. And this would be how we would characterize 20 to 21 year olds, you know, maybe a little older. I actually, you know what, let me do the deep dive research later and I'll figure it out, and next time when I come on with the next book in the series, we'll figure it out. But I like the way that they're characterized. I think that this really showcases well the age. I think the banter back and forth is awesome. I think the storyline and the themes that are present in this book are really good, and I enjoy that we are talking about stuff, but it's not overpowering to the point of preachy. Because there are moments for an author to be preachy, and I think there are some moments where you should be. However, in a story like this, I think it's hard to do that without a character going into a monologue and then that getting boring or something or whatever. But I think that there are themes that are touched in here that just are constantly brought up throughout as more of a thought process here or there, and it does seem random, but the second that you look back over the entire story, you're like, oh, that was building on itself, it was adding layers, and it was like, okay, cool. So the characterization in there, pretty good, pretty spot on for the ages. I do think it is different than the characterization that I would put on the London Seance Society, again, but that is to be expected. I like the pacing. Obviously it was pretty quick. But it wasn't even just pretty quick because it was more space between the lines. I think it was legit that it was just so easy to read. Meaning, like, you know how it's just easy to read things as action keeps happening, as thoughts keep happening, and you don't really have times for pauses or descriptions. It wasn't very descriptive, this world. Until you got to certain places and in certain rooms, and then you kind of got the description, but the description wasn't overly informative. I liked that. The characters weren't overly described. The action was pretty prevalent. The dialogue was always there. The banter was always there. The attitude of the characters always came into play. So I think there was always something to watch, that it didn't feel bogged down with detail, if that makes sense. Like, it wasn't like, for lack of a better comparison, it wasn't like Tolkien describing a tree for 28,000 pages. I know that that is not an accurate portrayal, but like 3 pages at least, okay? So yes, I enjoyed that. Renegades. What is it about? What are you going to get into? Well, you're following our girl Nova, and she is an anarchist, and anarchists are against this big organizational group turned political power called the Renegades. Now, apparently the Renegades are the big heroes, like everyone is supposed to like love them and trust them, and they're always going to be there for you. Nova learns completely differently, and then she realizes the Renegades aren't who they say they are. They're not going to be there. They're not going to protect you. They didn't protect my family. And she was taken in under her uncle's wing. Her uncle is Ace Anarchy. Yeah, she is a descendant of a very powerful villain. Now, as she comes to find out, though, later on in life, Ace is a quite complicated villain. Like, he's gray. He's not even morally gray. He's just gray as a character, because we come to find out his actual motivation, his actual vision. And while Nova believes somewhat along the same lines, but also differently, she's more inclined to following Ace Anarchy and his initial vision for people like them, people who had power, because initially people who had power were considered freaks, outcasts, and y'all should be gone. Then he created a world where people weren't awful to people with power. They understood that power could be helpful to society. But then it kind of turned to where there was just anarchy everywhere. Hence Ace Anarchy. But amidst that time, people became reliant on people with superpowers who decided it was enough was enough. We need a government, we need a body that governs well. And so they decided to take on that role, and instead of society helping them and real politicians, real government officials, real police officers that are human didn't come into the picture, they had to fulfill those roles themselves. And the problem that we're starting to see of superheroes just running everything is that superheroes are not government officials. Superheroes are not political leaders. The very idea of a superhero is that they can have their own set of rules, kind of, but with a moral and ethical baseline to help society and to protect society. And Adrian, who happens to be the adopted son of the two head honcho renegades, seems to feel that way. And that kind of sort of aligns with Nova, who believes everyone with powers should just disappear. The world would be better without us. However, because we're here, let us not fear each other, but also, hello, take care of yourselves. Basically, don't become dependent on something that isn't going to be there for you always. They are stretched thin. And so you're following Nova as she is kind of building around this ideology. Am I even making sense in any of this timeline here? Basically, okay, so we're following Nova. I'm getting so far ahead of myself, but I'm kind of setting the baseline of what is happening. So Nova kind of grew up in this world where now that the superheroes are now political leaders and figures and doing everything, running the world here, she wants to tell people, hey, they're not here for you. And so she follows her uncle, and the anarchists and the renegades are the big two leading powers that are just against each other. There's this huge battle, and then there is a huge loss for the anarchists. The renegades think, okay, we have no real enemy anymore. Let's start to rebuild the city. So they try to do the best they can with what they know, but they're just like regular people who have superhero abilities that were just like, I don't like this, I'm gonna take this down, and they did, and now they have to deal with the aftermath of it. And so during the aftermath, you know, Nova survives. Adrian is now without any parents and is adopted by the two head superheroes, so he's their son. Nova was adopted by her uncle because her parents had passed because the renegades were not there to protect them. And now they are about to meet each other. And they actually do meet each other prior to a plan that brewed, but I'm getting ahead of myself. They meet each other at a parade for the renegades to celebrate their victory over Ace Anarchy. And Nova is furious, and she is going to be the sharpshooter that is going to take down the head renegade, Captain Cronium, who apparently cannot be killed, and he was so close to being that day. However, there is a rogue person with superpowers on the scene, the anarchists, and then the renegades, and they're all kind of fighting each other at the moment. But we later learned that this rogue renegade may be closer to home for the renegades and more on their side than was initially expected. However, because he was outside of protocol, he decided he was going to remain silent for the most part. So Nova decides, we can't take them down like this. They know who we are. We have no insight, no intel. We are always going to be behind them in information, in moves. We need to think of something. Well, one of her fellow anarchists is like, hey, they're having the trials for the renegades. Maybe you should join. She wants to immediately take down that idea. And he's just like, but ma'am, they don't know who you are. They know Nightmare. They don't know who you are. Nightmare, Nova's alter ego as a villain. And so she's like, you may have a point. So she decides she's gonna go in and try out for the renegades, her mortal enemy, just to see if maybe she can get ahead of them in some way or shape or form. And she goes into the trials. Guess who she sees on one of the teams? Mr. Adrian. Well, that's not his name. That's not his last name. She sees Adrian yet again. His parents are the Dread Warden and Captain Cronium, the two heads, political figureheads of the Renegades, the greatest of the superheroes at this point in time. And Adrian recognizes her. Now, he doesn't recognize her as Nightmare. He recognizes her as Nova at the parade because he fixed her bracelet. The bracelet that was made by her father that she always wears. The clasp broke and he fixed it by drawing on her. That is his power. He is called Sketch. He's able to basically draw anything and bring it to life in 3D form, however he sees fit. And basically the way that his power works is through intention of the drawing and what he intends to do with said drawing. So that's how he controls his power. He sees her and he's just like, I want her on my team. Says as much. Another group is not happy about it because they're just butthurt about future details that you later learn in this book, but I'm not going to reveal everything. So she challenges that decision. Nova's just like, bring it. But not you, the big guy behind you, who's called Gargoyle. He basically, from what I read, he was like the Hulk. So she takes him down, just plain fighting skills. This girl, her power is way cooler than she tried to make it sound. However, her fighting skills, don't mess with her. And that wasn't even a part of her power. That was the most impressive part for me. So Adrian was like, great, she's on our team. Then we get into the Renegade headquarters and we then start to learn a whole lot more information. There's a kid that's in quarantine and she doesn't know why, but she's about to find out why. There is a gigantic training stadium for all of the superheroes, and that's not even all of them. There's an entire corporational networking unit system worldwide where people come to train here at the Renegade headquarters and then go back to their respective countries. They're are secret labs that she is not allowed into, not even Adrian is allowed into. There is the top floor where they get to meet and talk to the council because of a failed mission that happened in trying to catch Nightmare, who, guess what, is Nova. Nova is Nightmare, Nightmare is Nova, but Nightmare / Nova is also now Insomnia. So yeah, a lot goes down, and yeah, just read it to believe it, honestly, because there's a whole lot more that needs. You just gotta read this book. Like, there's a whole lot more. I don't want to give spoilers. I run the risk because I'm a yapper that I will spoil things. So I'm not gonna spoil any of that for you. But yeah, those are all of the books that I've read. Visual proof. One more time. Beautiful, beautiful stack. And yeah, so that is all I have for you guys. Stay tuned for Saturday because there will be a reading vlog up, woo! And you'll see if I even start a book at all. Spoiler alert, I did, but you'll see if I start any books, read any books, what I get up to during the week as I am reading. And yeah, that is all for today. Thank you guys so much for watching, and if you guys like content like this, leave a like. Feel free to subscribe to our little community here and be a part of all of the fun. Also, if you do subscribe, be sure to ring that bell so you can be notified every time I post new videos, because I am posting Wednesday and Saturday this month, Wednesday and Saturday for the month. Just got to get that out there. I also have some socials. I will leave all of that linked in the description box down below, as well as my lifestyle channel in case you're curious or nosy about life there. Feel free to check that out. And thank you guys so much for being the best bookish bestie that ever was, is, or ever will be. I'll be seeing you guys in the next video. Bye.